Let's Talk Small Business, the real talk, no BS podcast for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to grow and actually enjoy the ride. I'm Mitchell Wilson. Let's get into it. So today we're talking about something that a lot of business owners know they should be doing better, but often don't know where to start. And that's communications. PR and how you actually shape the story around your business. So my guest today, Amanda Lacey, the founder and director of Popcom, a marketing and communications consultancy that helps organizations build strong brands, communicate clearly, and manage reputation. So Amanda herself has worked across national campaigns. Her work has been recognized with numerous awards. Now, what I like about Amanda's work is that it goes beyond just publicity. It's about the bigger picture of how businesses position themselves, control their message, and create long-term brand ambassadors, both inside and outside the organization. Amanda, welcome, and let's talk small business.
Hi, Mitchell. Thanks for having me on your show today.
No worries, no worries. Now, I really want to get to a little bit of your backstory. What drew you in to PR and communications as a career?
Well, that's really interesting. It's a bit of a funny question. I actually grew up in the country in New South Wales, like way in the country on a sheep station. And I can remember when I was in year 12, I saw there was like an oil spill or something, and there was some penguins being washed with dishwashing detergent. It's one of those, I mean, this is starting to show my age a little bit. But I remember thinking, geez, that's really good advertising for that dishwashing company. And somebody said to me, oh, that's PR. I didn't even really know what that was or what that meant. Like I said, I'm a bit of a country bumpkin on a sheep station in country New South Wales. But I was really interested to know more. So I actually got the yellow pages out and just started looking up PR firms in Sydney and just called one day and said, hey, what do I have to study at university to do your job? And the guy first said to me, how did you get my phone number and how did you get through to me? But then just said, that's a really good question. I don't really know. So from there, I kind of studied business and marketing at university. But I actually ended up working in investment banking for 8 years.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so I went where the money was. Like I said, good country girl moving to the city. And I worked in private equity investment banking for quite a long time. But then I was always a really strong writer. I'd won some writing awards in high school and things like that. And the last company I worked for this amazing entrepreneur who had his own private office. And he had quite the public reputation and profile. So I started slipping more into that side of the business and making sure that he was appearing in the media correctly. And then from there, I moved over to Australian Catholic University and helped them amalgamate their campuses and their branding, moved into a strong internal comms role. So I was at the university for quite some time. And then I decided to branch out and start Popcom, which was just a sort of small consulting agency about 13 years ago. And it's sort of grown from there.
Awesome. So I guess when you founded Popcom, like what did you see in the market that you wanted to fill, that gap there?
Well, this was, I said, 12 or 13 years ago. And it's amazing how quickly, well, it feels quickly, and maybe that's actually quite a long time. Like I said, I'm starting to show my age a little. But at the time when I first went into comms at the university was just after the GFC. So investment banks were going down. I decided I hated Excel. I was like, I don't even know why I'm working in equities. So this is shit.
Yeah.
So I moved into that comms area, and where I saw the opportunity, or what I started initially doing, was more that digital PR piece. So nobody really had a good LinkedIn profile.
Gotcha.
LinkedIn was this kind of poor cousin that people knew about but didn't really know how to use. Facebook was just starting to emerge, and that's our generation. So we were kind of in our 20s. I know there's no 20-year-olds on Facebook now, but this was kind of new technology and it was rapidly growing at the time. So I saw that there was a real opportunity for particularly professional services to just appear a bit smarter and be across that digital platform a little bit more and be able to promote themselves to their owned channels, as opposed to just earned coverage or, your basic sort of marketing plan, which back then was printing off a capability statement and handing that physical piece of paper over. So I saw a lot of opportunity in the digital area, which is what I sort of initially started doing. So I was going into firms, looking at the whole picture, looking at their website, their LinkedIn profiles, what the individuals within that organization were doing. A lot of them had a LinkedIn profile registered, but they had never posted. There was no picture on it, didn't explain what they did. It's just something they had signed up for. So that's kind of where it began. It was kind of making that whole digital footprint present in a particular way. And then from there, leveraging your your brand one step further with, earned and reputational media.
Now, of course, it seems like a no-brainer today that every business, you say, well, where do I start having a business? Well, first of all, get your socials and all the rest. But back then, like you said, maybe not so much. So you've
No.
probably seen that space especially evolve quite rapidly when it comes to business.
Yeah, absolutely. I said this was 12, 13 years ago, which doesn't, like I said, seem like that long ago, but now it's just standard practice. It's the first thing people do. And also, the website was of importance. It was kind of your first entry point into a business was the website, but now it's kind of switched. So before it was website, you'd go there, you'd scroll to the bottom, and then you might check socials. Now I'm finding that lead development is different. People will go to social media first and then back to your website. So little things like that have changed dramatically in the way that we sort of present and where we put our emphasis. But yeah, rapid change from about 6 years ago. I saw it like it was standard.
Got you. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. For, I guess, small business owners listening, how do you explain the difference between marketing, PR, and communications?
Well, it's a whole nice big grey area, really, isn't it? And then there's so many elements within public relations and communications that, across a lot of lines as well. But the way that I would describe the difference is marketing is more you're putting a message out there and asking for a response. So it's not necessarily sales, but it's very, direct what your answer is. Whereas public relations and communications is a little bit more long term. It's a little bit more subtle. It is that second person endorsing you in a media article. It is, it is your primary channel to your audience, but it's not in a selling lead generation sort of a way. It's more brand building. It's more long term. It's much more strategic.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that an easy way?
I think so. Like I said, it's a grey area. Yeah.
It's very great because then when you get into public relations, you've also got, if you're a product, you might have brand ambassadors, influencer marketing, social media, what I refer to as digital PR because I'm not really selling on social media. So there's a whole sort of grey area around social as well. But public relations can mean events. It can mean so many different things. But ultimately, it all comes down to the goal of what you're putting out there and what you expect the outcome to be. I said sales is pretty easy. Buy these sunglasses for $20. Marketing, these sunglasses are fantastic. You should contact us to find out more. PR is you wearing the sunglasses and someone saying, where did you get those sunnies from? They're really cool.
Right. It's becoming clearer. I better ask because it was X many years that you've been running Popcom, and when you were in your early days, you actually called up PR firm. You said, "Hey, how do I do this?" So the question is, have you had anyone call you up and ask the same thing?
All the time. Actually, particularly through social media, we always have, a run of, PR is like a proper university subject now. Back in then, at least 2000-ish.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily like a full standalone subject, but communications, PR, and journalism was the big driver. Most people wanted to study journalism, and then they might have got into PR. But now we obviously know that journalism has a lot of limitations. It's not exactly the thriving industry that it was sort of 20 or 30 years ago. So PR and comms is like a standalone degree in itself. But last week I spoke to somebody who had seen a TikTok that I was talking about, a CEO who had done the wrong thing, and she reached out to me and said, hey, can you explain to me what crisis management is? What is that? How do I get to do that? I'm interested in it. So yeah, it has come a bit full circle.
There we go. Circle of life. Okay. So over the years, you've worked across a lot of campaigns and organizations. What are the key things that you notice that strong brands are doing consistently well?
Well, I was about to say strong brands are consistent. Well, that is usually the differentiator. What I see strong brands doing is they look for those market opportunities outside of just their own, their own channels. It's great. Like you need a plan to go out with your own social media, your own email marketing. All of that stuff is really, really important. And doing it consistently is really important. I think we all know that now. Brand consistency is essential. But what I see people doing really well, and the brands that are more excelling and have that brand positioning in the marketplace, is they're also talking at industry events and conferences. They're quoted in the media. They have a very clear point of view as to what they're doing and why they're doing it, and they're able to relate that easily back to their customer, and everybody internally also understands what that organization is trying to achieve and how they're going to achieve it. That's what good brands do well.
I guess a lot of smaller businesses focus heavily on marketing and sales.
Okay.
So, now where does that communication strategy fit into the bigger picture, shall we say?
Well, it depends on what the business is. This is kind of how I could talk about this subject forever. Sorry. But if your long-term goal is to create something really quick and then maybe sell off to a bigger company, that is a lot of small businesses, ultimate goal. I'm going to make this lipstick really, really well, and then I'm going to sell off to, Revlon. You need a long-term strategy. You need PR and brand building to do that, because how's Revlon going to find out about you? How's that parent company going to buy you if you're not in the financial press, if you're not presenting in a way that you could be bought out? So there's that sort of side of business. But for your average person who just wants to run their small business and they're doing really, really well and they make tide, there is still a PR branding piece in there, because what if something goes wrong and you have a brand recall, or you get some negative press, or you get some negative feedback? If you haven't spent the time investing in your reputation, the first thing that's going to come up when people Google is that incident, and your reputation can be gone very, very, very quickly. I speak a lot about reputation. I actually specialize in crisis management. That's what I mainly do in our firm now. So I'm big on brand and reputation, and making sure that you've got that positive influence going in the background as a bit of a safeguard for troubles in the future. It's that first sort of big thing. Secondly, you have growing your audience bigger than what you've already got can only go so far with a marketing and sales campaign. If you really want to tap into new audiences, a PR, earned media presence is important. So that mention in, Marie Claire or wherever your target audience might be reading can open up a new, a whole new sector for you that you might not necessarily have known about. And also, if it's coming down to a purchase, like, am I going to buy product A, which might be, stocked in David Jones and I really know about it really well, and, Revlon's a really good lipstick, or product B, which is a new brand, what's going to be the differentiator? It's going to be reputation. So having that comms piece out there, having some third-party endorsement, having somebody else talk about your product provides that endorsement, which makes it more likely for someone to purchase from you.
And of course, that sort of verges on the influencer industry, which is real.
It is real. It is real. But what I am saying, and what I will say on that, which is good news for small businesses. So influencers and brand ambassadors, slightly different things. I like to go down the brand ambassador route as opposed to the influencer route. It's very easy to get user-generated content now. We all know how to get that. There's plenty of platforms. But stepping aside from that, brand ambassadorship, it's a deeper level of commitment. It's usually a little bit more expensive, or you can choose to be your own brand ambassador. So when I was initially starting out, I was published a fair bit on the importance of internal communications and creating internal brand ambassadors. And I still believe really strongly in this. And what we are seeing across social is a shift towards that secondary person, and it actually being the founder themselves, being their own brand ambassador. So rather than user-generated influencer content, what is more powerful at the moment across social platforms is founder profile. So if you're a small business, and you should be out there as the founder talking about how passionate you are about your own brand, as opposed to paying someone else to do it.
Love it. Now, I've got written down here, you mentioned about crisis management. So I'm just trying to rack my brain about, some things that I can think of in the media. Recently, I went to a Coldplay concert, and of course, there was a business owner or someone there with the infamous kiss cam. Is that when a PR agency like yourself goes into crisis management?
And I love this example. I actually did a video on this on Instagram, and I did a few media articles on it as well, particularly across like the legal and HR press. Yes, that is when you would call a PR firm in. And they handled it beautifully. I think it was Ryan Reynolds' company that ended up doing it. I'm not sure if you saw the response video that got put out. If you haven't,
I didn't. No.
It's great. Oh my God, it's great. They got Gwyneth Paltrow, I think it was, to actually do the response video.
Wow.
But yes, that is a good mainstream example. But my advice when that initially first came out was, look, you need to separate the CEO from the actual brand. That CEO isn't the brand. They're an employee of the company. Let's create a little bit of separation. Let's get back to focusing on what the company actually does and make a holistic image. So you never ever speak negatively. You always look into instances seriously. You never say no comment. There's a whole heap of things that can be done around that. But yes, that is definitely a PR crisis example.
Now, in saying that, you've just sort of mentioned before that it really, like businesses today, really need to be founder led. So when they're founder led, and we're saying at one stage, well, we need to sort of separate ourselves in some
That's a little
moment.
bit different
Is that
from a
like,
small business to a global enterprise. So
yeah,
you're
right,
big enough to employ a CEO and probably not necessarily falling straight in the small business category.
right. Okay. Now, just before we got on, I had a look online. Don't like looking at news too much, but I had it up. And is this? I guess it's not driven by the company, but Trump. I'll mention his name. Don't cringe too much. But he was. The article is about him raving on and buying shoes, a particular brand for all the shoes. It is now. Is that kind of am I verging into the influencer side of things there,
Yes,
Griffiths?
absolutely. The
Yeah.
shares in that company would be through the roof,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah. I
People
mean, and they might
loving or
not want to be
hating, he's
part
got
of
his no
his.
followers.
I mean, they might not want to be part of his story either, though.
No, they may not want to be part of his story, but I can assure you that their sales just went up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I love it. Okay. So, how much of this is telling a story then? Like, if a business owner says, we don't really have a story, can you help us uncover one?
Yeah, everybody has a story, everybody has an angle. Usually, if a smaller business will come to me, or any business, small or big, they'll come to me with a particular problem, usually like, we want to generate some more sales in this, or we've got this great product and we don't know how to tell people about it, or we've already saturated our existing market. So there's always a story there. So we'll take it a step back, and it might be a founder profile. The founder might have a really interesting story as to why they got into business. Might be the problem that the product solves. There might be like a nice little angle in there. For example, a robotic lawnmower. I'm just thinking of a recent campaign that we've been working on. You'd think that like the strongest angle there is, saving time. The robot lawnmower is mowing my lawn. But actually, there's a really good angle in there for older people or less mobile people who can't actually mow their own lawn. So you sort of like break it down and have a look at all the different little areas where your product might be able to push into a new market, or the problem that it might solve, or what makes it special. And then you can pull your angle back from there. It could be, I've had success with headline pitching around, an accounting firm has put out their half yearly results. But you just need to find a bit of a sexier headline in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be half year results. It could be 5 ways to ensure that you're being tax effective this financial year. And they're all in there, that it's just about finding the right way to tell that story.
Cool. I love it. And can you tell us about some of the campaigns that you've had a lot of fun on? Anyone in particular?
Yeah, I've had lots of fun on lots of campaigns. So we won an award a couple of, it was last year or the year before, maybe, I don't know, time goes by so quickly. We did a big public advocacy campaign for a group of community pharmacists. So double dispensing was a big issue in Australia. So we were employed to sort of make a bit of noise. And that was a very heavy political campaign. That was good fun because it was big. And we did make a lot of noise. So that was a bit of a fun, interesting one. It was hard work. There were, 4 a.m. mornings of screwing signs together to get ready to go to, political rallies. So that was always interesting. So I do a lot more crisis work these days. So I'm not sure how much fun is necessarily had.
Yeah, right.
On the cases that I'm working on. But our team gets to do a lot of, nice events. So, product launches are always really good fun when you're hosting a party and people are coming over and you're getting to sort of share. And we get quite passionate about with the clients that we're working with. So getting to share the client stories of their product and seeing that then come out in the press is always very satisfying.
Hey, I like the way you put it there, Amanda, like making some noise.
I love making noise.
Yeah, and that's probably what a lot of this is about.
Yeah,
To just try and get
or
that attention.
making the noise go away.
Or making the noise go away. Is that because we just sort of put some other things out that make it more noisier, or change the core?
It can be, yeah. It depends on the, on the issue, but often my job when it comes to crisis management, which is sort of what I specialize in, it's more about creating time for the lawyers to do their job, for the media to get their story right. Is if there's not a conduit or a go-between the particular issue and the company and the media, they will just publish what they've been told straight away because that's what they have to do. Their job is to sell newspapers. And I find that more often than not, journalists are very reasonable people. And if you go to them and say, look, I will get you that information. I just can't get it to you right now. So it's a lot of that, just sort of managing the information flow, making sure that things are fact checked properly before they get to the media, and also coming up with a positive route to, which way it's going to go, particularly if a subject's in litigation or subject to some sort of legal inquiry. So that's kind of buying time is a lot of the role, and making sure the message is very clear and transparent.
Once again, I don't actually look at the news that much, but I saw that Watties or Heinz put out into the news that they're considering shutting down some factories, which would affect a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of sitting here going, I wonder if a PR firm has just said, let's just put it out there that we're considering it first.
Yeah,
let it settle before we actually pull the trigger on it. Am I kind of right as to what's
I would say you're
here?
completely right there.
Yeah, right.
Test the waters, get people used to a message, and then sort of like keep pushing it through.
Okay. So are there certain industries or business stories that I guess are more surprisingly newsworthy if positioned correctly?
Everything is newsworthy if positioned correctly. Hey, my firm works a lot with professional service organizations. So we work with a lot of lawyers, work with a lot of accounting firms, work with a lot of finance, but we also do have an FMCG arm as well. We do, and particularly across tech products, they might come to us with a product launch, and there's a technical aspect to it. So that's a, different side of consumer media. But everything is newsworthy if you understand it well enough, and if you understand what that sort of expert zone is that, like I said, that your product actually solves or your service actually solves. It's just about finding the right way to talk about it. I mean, a payroll system sounds boring, but that could be really an interesting story if you're talking about how it, can save time within an industry. If you pull out like a bit of a founder story as to the problem that it initially solved and why it solves, and the real world implications of saving that time, that can become a really interesting financial economic story. Solar panels. I'm writing solar panels at the moment for a big company, an Australian and a Kiwi actually. Kiwi and a Canadian, actually. They live in North America, and they've got this amazing solar product. It's a facade for a building, and like within this, infrastructure is actually data storage. So you don't have to send your data to the cloud, which creates data sovereignty. There's all these knock-on effects. Sounds really boring when they first sort of start talking about, oh yeah, we make solar panels. But when you sort of dig into it a little bit and start talking about data sovereignty, which is a big issue for a lot of organizations in cybersecurity, there's a really interesting angle in there.
Yeah, and like just listening to that in one angle sparked my interest as opposed to maybe some other angles. So yeah.
Absolutely. Solar panels, boring. Kiwi, Canadian founder based in Australia, living in North America. That's interesting in itself. How did this, random Kiwi guy end up making these world-changing solar panels? There's so many different little ways in there that you can explain and tell people stories to make it interesting, because it is interesting. Everybody's got an interesting story. It's just about being brave enough to talk about it, being brave enough to put your name to it and to really own it, and then presenting it in a particular way.
And of course, you're living proof yourself by tuning up on this podcast.
Yeah, which is quite fun, actually.
Look, you talk about a long-term strategic view with communications. Why is that so important with business growth?
It is important because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to find a map to get there? But I mean, you can sort of just put stuff out there and see what sticks. And sometimes we have to do that because had no luck in running a particular campaign that we want to run. So like, okay, let's test the market and put it out there and see what our, result's going to be. And then we can go down that rabbit hole later. But if you haven't got a clear idea of what you want to do long term, I don't see necessarily that you're going to have wonderful success in my experience. Even if it's just like pie in the sky, like, okay, I want to have such and such turnover and I want to work in these markets and I want to have an office and I want to have staff and a nice car. Even if it's like as broad as that, like I think it's really important to have an understanding as to where you want to go. And if you don't have that understanding, like you can't really, develop a roadmap. The same with strategic communications. So if you want to be, an expert in purple balloons is, where it's at. If you're not telling people that I'm an expert in purple balloons and knowing what markets you want to go to and knowing that, people in the inner west buy more purple balloons than people in the North Shore, how are you going to create that growth? How are you going to be known for that particular, area? But if you've got a strategic plan in place, and it's a long-term plan to know, right, that's the markets that we want to be into, and purple balloons is for us, and it makes it a lot easier to grow. Does that make sense? It's a bit of a weird example.
Yeah, it does, because it kind of brings to mind like those messages and stuff. It can be so powerful that there are some people out there using this power in a negative way. And I'm talking about those people that are saying things that are shocking, that maybe they don't believe. I think there's the whole men online sort of degrading women, all that kind of stuff out there. And, there's some kind of message going through, and the more shocking the message, it seems like the more people listen. Is that kind of what's going on?
Yeah, unfortunately, humans have got this addiction to negative news. We do like the negative headline more than we like the positive.
Well, that's what the industry sort of seems to be built on, really, doesn't it? The news?
There's not a lot of good news out there. When you're saying you don't really read the newspaper often, I'm probably guessing it's because there's not a lot of good news in it.
I try and stay away from it on purpose. I pick and choose what I look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got that benefit of doing that now because we've got so many options to get our headlines. And who knows what's real and what's not as well. There's a whole other thing happening in fake news and AI and image generation. But yeah, the shock headline, I think it'll go out of fashion, to be honest with you. I think just like with anything, it'll become overused and will be desensitized. You'll either have to go to the next level and actually have to start doing those shocking things online, or people will turn away from it because you just get desensitized. I mean, there are so many examples that I can use, none really appropriate for a PG podcast that are coming to mind. But there are some examples that I could use to show like that one-up sort of nature that human beings have sort of gotten themselves into. But the desensitization, like if you say something enough, roll their eyes in the back of their head and not listen eventually. And so you're going to have to take it a step further. So I think that will go. Long story short.
Now,
otherwise, you're going to have to actually start bashing women online to be able to get attention.
Well, okay. We'll move away from that subject because maybe I've watched just too many movies, Amanda, but I can imagine you sort of, they're in crisis. Someone, the fixer comes in, the PR expert, and just says, deny, deny, deny. Is that kind of what happens in crisis management?
No, it's not what happens. That's the worst thing you can do most of the time. That no comment was a big thing. No comment. No comment is the worst thing you can say because people automatically assume you're guilty. And again, it'll come back to your business goals. If you want to have an ongoing business, if you want to survive it and keep going and not have to do a full rebrand, change your name, create a new company, go bankrupt, all that sort of stuff, I deny is not a good tactic to take. A better tactic is transparency, admitting that you might have made a mistake or that a mistake has been made, and then really clearly outlining all the improvements that have been made going forward and why you're better off for it. Most people will forgive, particularly if something is out of control, it is an accident. If you've just, walked into a building and shot someone in the head for the sake of it, then there's no getting out of that one. But there's also no point in denying it, is there? Because security cameras have seen it. The evidence is against you. But yeah, deny, not a good tactic.
Okay.
Transparency.
Like I said, I probably just watched too many movies. I don't know where
too many movies.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned before that communications, PR, is not just external, but internal as well.
Absolutely.
How would a company sort of go about that internal dialogue, those internal communications?
I, for a very long time, focused on internal communications. It's a topic that I'm fairly passionate about. Good internal communications cuts your marketing and advertising budget. It's as simple as that. Because if everybody within your organization is doing the promotion for you because they know who they work for, what they stand for, what they sell, why it's important, what problem they solve, and they love working there and they feel valued, they're going to be out there in the marketplace telling everybody. They're going to be at the family barbecue on Sunday going, I work with this amazing company in the city. We do X, Y, Z. We also helped A, B, C, D. I'm so proud of the work that we did with this charity. And they're going to be advertising your business for you. So internal communications and creating those internal brand ambassadors is something that has to be invested in. Like there is just, if you want to have a successful organization, everybody in your company needs to know who you are, what you do, what you stand for, and what problem that you solve. And if you can get that done consistently and well, and even things like people don't necessarily consider this, but a brand is more internal necessarily than it is external. How you turn up to work, what you dress, what you dress in. Are you an organization where you turn up in a t-shirt, or are you an organization when you turn up in a suit? That, gives you a really good idea of what the culture is going to be. And also might give you a really good idea as to what is expected externally and what your company is selling and what your client can expect in terms of partnership or product delivery. Internal communications, very, very important.
Well, actually, just read fairly recently that in terms of the newer generation, whatever they're called nowadays, going into working for someone, like, yes, pay still and, benefits, but it's more so they were saying the mission, the purpose of that business, that they were aligned with it. And I guess that all comes down to what you're saying right now.
Absolutely. Company culture and alignment, those things are really important, particularly to our new generation workers. I think Gen Z has already taken over as the biggest working category in the world.
Really?
Yeah. There's more than there are us. We're outnumbered. We're like dinosaurs. But yeah, brand alignment, culture, company mission, those things are really, really important. They want to be working for an organization that they believe in, that they can trust, and that has a good reputation. It's as simple as that. And why wouldn't you want to?
Yeah, of course. Now, okay, if a business owner is listening today and wants to improve their communications immediately, besides calling Popcom, what are a couple of things that they could start doing this week?
Give yourself a hard brand audit. Google your name, see what comes up, see where you're listed in a search engine ranking position. That's number one. So, and if you're not ranking on those sort of first 5 pages, you've got a little bit of work to do.
Is it 5 pages now, is it?
Well, it's really one. But if you're not on the first 5, you're stuffed. So you really need to invest in your SEO. Ideally, you want to be on page number 1 or number 2. How do you get there? Backlinks. How do you get those backlinks? Mentioned in some articles. So if I was a small business and I wanted to sort of start working on my PR and comms, the first thing I would do is brand audit, give my name a Google, see what comes up, see what doesn't come up, see what I'm associated with, see what my customer reviews are, and be really honest with myself as to where I can improve. 2, I would work out what I really want to be known for and sit there and go, okay, I really want to sell ABCD. I really want to be known in my industry for this. So write that down, put a few words around it, put a bit of a picture around it. And then start looking for opportunities. So if you see an article in the newspaper that relates directly to your industry, reach out to the journalist. It's not hard to find their details and say, hi, read your article. It was really interesting. I work in this particular widget factory. And what I have found is ABCD. If you're ever interested in doing a follow-up article, I'd love to talk to you. It's simple.
I love it. Okay. So on the other side of thing, what is one of those communication mistakes you see business owners making over and over again?
Not presenting a unified brand is a real ick. Like, make sure that you look good before going out. Make sure that you've got all the pieces of the puzzle together before you go out. Don't go pitching somebody if your website looks terrible. You've got 3 different logos, your font's all over the place, nothing's aligning. Make sure those basic things are sorted first, because if you don't present professionally, people aren't going to take you seriously. It's number 1. Number 2, too many words. Make sure that you're really direct with what it is that you do and your explanation is short and sharp. If you can't explain it quickly, then you don't really know what you're doing. So there's sort of the 2 points that I get a bit icked on straight away. I think, oh God, this is an absolute mess. We need to redo this whole thing, pull up some brand messaging, get a bit of a message hierarchy going and start afresh.
I love it. So what's one brand then that you think communicates exceptionally well?
Gosh, there's so many brands that communicate.
And we're going to get away from like the Apple and all that kind of stuff that everyone knows.
Like, do you want to go big? Do you want to go small?
Well, it doesn't matter what. I'm just sort of, what do you love at the moment?
The number 1 trusted brand for 8 quarters in a row now is Bunnings.
Right.
It's the most trusted brand in Australia, maybe New Zealand too, I'm not sure, but definitely the most trusted brand in Australia. And the reason why Bunnings is the most trusted brand in Australia is because of the way that they communicate and their community involvement. So it's a big national brand, it's owned by a big corporate, but you go to your local Bunnings in, Tamworth, which is where I'm from, and they're hosting their Saturday dollar barbecue. The money from that barbecue is going to the Tamworth Tigers football club or whatever. Like, they've got the really nice, heavy community engagement program going where they really do embed themselves in the community. They also, the ads that they produce that you will notice on TV are kind of a little bit user generated. Like, they're filmed with real staff members in real stores talking about real things. So it brings the user inside the organization.
One of my past assistants was one of those people that spoke on that.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it shows that authenticity. It tells the story as to who they are. We're not that fancy. We're just regular people. We're doing our, our job. We're doing our best. We love what we do. We like working here. We're quite happy. And inviting the user into that sort of environment through their advertising and also their own community, like their community embedding. That is a brand that's doing PR really well.
So locally, here, we've got Bunnings, big store at Bunnings, and then down the street we've got a big store, Mitre 10 Mega.
Oh, yeah, we've got Mitre 10 too.
So within my community, Mitre 10 seems to be doing a better job. They're building homes and auctioning them for charity and stuff. They've got specific people that are out doing charity events, and I think that investment is paying off. Personally, when I go into the stores, I can see the difference. But it's not so much the store itself or the products that they're offering, because hey, much for muchness. But you're right, what they're doing out there, their message, that community. So yeah, I like what you're saying.
Absolutely. Mitre 10 have gone a lot heavier on their community, sponsoring particular TV shows and, like I said, doing sort of large things. They're really sort of starting to copy that community model. And I think in positioning wise, Mitre 10, I don't know, for me, it seems more expert. So if I feel like I'm a tradie, I'm probably going to go to Mitre 10. But as a mum or dad, I'm probably going to go to Bunnings. Does that make sense? Like they might have slightly different target markets depending upon what service or job that you've got, that you're doing. But that's a really good example. But Bunnings is still holding the number one spot for trust, and trust is really what we're building with public relations.
Yeah.
Qantas, on the other hand, plummets down that list every day.
Hey, okay, so what's a simple habit that makes someone a better communicator in business for themselves?
Listening to what your client needs, listening to what the market needs, taking notice of what other people are doing. I think listening is the ultimate sort of, speaking promotional tool, because if you're listening to what people want and you're finding that position in the marketplace because of what you've heard and what you've read and what you've absorbed, you're going to be a much clearer communicator.
I like it. Well, it's been a pleasure listening to you today, Amanda. I have actually learned a lot. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think there's a lot here that business owners are going to find incredibly practical, especially around how intentional communication can help, shape the growth and reputation of their business. So before we wrap up, where can listeners find you and learn more about Popcom and the work that you're doing?
Gosh, well, you can follow our Instagram, which is just busy Popcom. My Instagram is Amanda Lacey PR, and obviously our website is www.popcom.
Love it. Now, if you're listening to this episode and it's got you thinking differently about your business, whether it's sales systems or strategy, that is the point. If you want help identifying that as well, figure out what your biggest bottleneck is, mapping out your next smart move, of course, you can also book in a free breakthrough session with myself and the Coach Birds team. Thanks, Amanda, for joining us today. To everyone listening, I guess, remember, great businesses are not built by accident. It is getting that clear roadmap, especially with your communications and your PR. Thanks so much, and we'll see you again.
Thank you very much for having me on today. Have a good day.
Let's talk small business. I appreciate you tuning in. If you got value, hit subscribe, like, or drop a comment. It spreads the word and might just help another legend get their breakthrough.